September 13, 1942. Guadalcanal. Raiders Ridge, a narrow coral spine rising 400 feet above the jungle floor. Lieutenant Colonel Merritt Edson's 1st Marine Raider Battalion held defensive positions along the ridgeline. Official War Department records document 840 Marines present that morning. By nightfall, only the central position remained under American control. Intelligence reports filed by Edson's staff indicated Japanese forces massing south of the Lunga perimeter. Estimated strength: 2,000 to 3,000 troops from Colonel Kawaguchi Kiki's reinforced regiment. The Marines expected reconnaissance probes. What arrived was a full-scale assault designed to recapture Henderson Field. This is what happened when training met reality. On August 7, 1942, the 1st Marine Division landed on Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands. Their objective: capture the nearly completed Japanese airfield and deny its use to enemy forces. Within 24 hours, Marines secured what would become Henderson Field, but the Japanese High Command viewed Guadalcanal as strategically vital. Imperial General Headquarters dispatched reinforcements throughout August and early September. Among these units was the 35th Infantry Brigade under Major General Kawaguchi. War Department intelligence summaries from September 1942 confirm his mission: destroy Henderson Field and eliminate the Marine perimeter. Colonel Merritt Edson commanded the 1st Raider Battalion and 1st Parachute Battalion, approximately 840 men total. His defensive sector covered the southern approach to Henderson Field along a series of ridges, Marines called Edson's Ridge. This documentary examines the three-day battle through official military records, after-action reports, and verified eyewitness accounts. Every fact presented comes from archive sources accessible through the National Archives and the Marine Corps History Division. September 12, 1942. 2,100 hours. Marine positions along the ridge detected movement in the jungle below. Patrol reports filed that evening documented Japanese forces probing the southern perimeter in significant numbers. At 2,130 hours, Japanese artillery and mortar fire struck Marine positions. The official 1st Raider Battalion War Diary records this as the opening barrage. 14 75mm mountain guns and 12 105mm howitzers targeted the ridge. Illumination rounds followed. Then the assault began. Sergeant Walter Borak, 1st Raider Battalion, described the attack in his 1943 official deposition. They came in waves. We could hear them shouting. The first line hit our wire around 2,200. Marine defensive positions consisted of hasty fighting holes connected by communication trenches. Records show insufficient barbed wire and no prepared secondary positions. Edson's battalion had been on Guadalcanal for 5 weeks, conducting raids and patrolling. They were exhausted. Japanese infantry from the 2nd Battalion, 124th Infantry Regiment advanced in organized assault formations. Unit diaries confirmed they expected to overrun Marine positions through numerical superiority and aggressive night tactics. By midnight, Japanese forces penetrated Marine forward positions on the southern slopes. The 1st Raider Battalion War Diary documents Companies B and C withdrawing under pressure to the main ridge. At 0200 hours on September 13th, Colonel Edson repositioned his command post 150 yards rearward. His after-action report states, forward positions became untenable due to concentrated enemy pressure from multiple directions. The Japanese assault doctrine emphasized night infiltration, close combat, and relentless pressure. Marine Corps tactical publications from 1942 acknowledged this approach but offered limited guidance for defending against mass night attacks in jungle terrain. First Light revealed the tactical situation. Japanese forces occupied the southern and eastern slopes of the ridge. Marine positions contracted to a 400-yard front centered on the highest elevation. Henderson Field lay 1,200 yards north. Between the airfield and the Marines, approximately 2,000 Japanese infantry. The 1st Marine Raider Battalion formed in February 1942 under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Merritt Edson, Marine Corps. Records document their mission: conduct amphibious raids, reconnaissance, and special operations. Training emphasized physical conditioning, small unit tactics, marksmanship, and knife fighting. Edson, a veteran of the Banana Wars in Nicaragua, implemented rigorous selection standards. Official rosters show the battalion at full strength by May 1942, 39 officers and 892 enlisted men. The Raiders trained at Quantico, Virginia, before deploying to the Pacific in June 1942. Their doctrine emphasized aggressive patrolling, fire superiority, and rapid movement. Marine Corps publications from that period described Raiders as elite light infantry capable of independent operations. This confidence reflected pre-war assumptions about American firepower and Japanese capabilities. The 1st Raider Battalion landed on Guadalcanal on August 7, 1942, as part of the initial assault. Their objective: secured Tulagi Island across Iron Bottom Sound, eliminating Japanese naval facilities and garrison forces. After-action reports document fierce Japanese resistance. The three-day battle for Tulagi resulted in 45 Marines killed and 53 wounded. Japanese casualties: approximately 350 killed, 3 captured. In late August, the Raiders transferred to Guadalcanal proper, conducting patrols along the Lunga River and raiding Japanese positions at Tasimboko. On August 30th, Edson led 813 Marines in a surprise attack on Japanese supply dumps and bivouac areas. The Tasimboko raid destroyed significant supplies and inflicted casualties on Japanese rear echelon units. Official intelligence reports recovered during the raid revealed substantial Japanese reinforcements arriving by sea. These documents indicated a major offensive was imminent. Imperial General Headquarters viewed the loss of Guadalcanal as a serious strategic setback. Japanese war planning required control of the Solomon Islands to protect the southern flank of their defensive perimeter. In late August, Lieutenant General Harukichi Hyakutake, commander of the 17th Army, dispatched Major General General Kawaguchi with approximately 6,000 troops to recapture the island. Japanese planning documents captured after the war show their assessment. American forces numbered no more than 2,000 troops with limited supplies. This estimate was catastrophically wrong. By early September, Marine strength exceeded 10,000 men. Kawaguchi's operational plan called for a 3-pronged night attack. The main assault would strike from the south along the ridge system, while diversionary attacks targeted the Matnika River sector and the eastern perimeter. Japanese doctrine emphasized night operations to neutralize American firepower advantages. Intelligence reports filed by Marine scouts in early September documented significant Japanese buildup south of Henderson Field. Colonel Edson received this information on September 10th. On September 11, 1942, Major General Alexander Vandegrift, commanding the 1st Marine Division, ordered Edson to establish defensive positions along the ridge system south of Henderson Field. The 1st Raider Battalion and 1st Parachute Battalion, under Edson's tactical control, occupied positions along a 2,400-yard front. Terrain consisted of kunai grass, sparse jungle, and steep coral slopes. Visibility limited. Fields of fire restricted. Marine defensive doctrine emphasized interlocking fields of fire, prepared obstacles, and artillery support. Time constraints prevented comprehensive preparation. The official war diary notes barbed wire coverage remained incomplete by September 12th. Supporting arms included 11th Marines Artillery Regiment, 12 105 mm howitzers and 12 75 mm pack howitzers positioned north of the airfield. Organic 60 mm and 81 mm mortar within the battalion. Limited .30 and .50 caliber machine gun coverage. Air support remained unavailable during night operations due to operational restrictions. Colonel Edson conducted terrain reconnaissance on September 11th. His report to division. The headquarters stated, defensive positions adequate for determined defense but vulnerable to infiltration and envelopment due to extended frontage and limited observation. This assessment proved accurate. Throughout September 12th, Marine patrols reported Japanese movement south of the perimeter. At 1800 hours, forward observation posts detected troops massing approximately 1,000 yards south of Marine lines. Colonel Edson ordered increased alert status. Ammunition distribution increased. Machine gun crews received instructions for final protective fires. Artillery forward observers registered defensive concentrations. At 2,100 hours, Japanese artillery opened fire. The 1st Raider Battalion War Diary documents the barrage, heavy and accurate fire from multiple batteries. Estimated 75 mm and 105 mm. Duration, 30 minutes. Effect, minimal casualties, significant psychological impact. Marine artillery responded with counter-battery fire. Effectiveness, unknown. Japanese guns continued firing throughout the night. At 2,130 hours, the 1st Japanese infantry assault struck Marine forward positions. Companies B and C, occupying the southern slopes, engaged advancing enemy infantry at ranges under 50 yards. Private First Class Joseph Allen, Company B, 1st Raider Battalion, described the initial contact in his 1943 testimony. We heard them coming through the grass. Then the shouting started. They hit our wire in large groups. We opened fire at point-blank range. Japanese tactics emphasized aggressive advance under covering fire, followed by close assault with grenades and bayonets. Marine defensive fires disrupted these formations, but failed to halt the advance. By 2,300 hours, Japanese forces penetrated between Company B and Company C positions. The battalion war diary records, enemy achieved penetration of 4 positions. Companies withdrawing to ridgeline under pressure. Darkness complicated command and control. Radio communication remained sporadic. Runner casualties mounted. Marine units lost contact with adjacent positions. Japanese infiltration tactics exploited these gaps. Small units bypassed Marine strongpoints, attacking from multiple directions. Isolated fighting holes engaged enemy infantry at ranges measured in yards. Sergeant Anthony Malinowski, Company C, 1st Raider Battalion, reported in his official deposition, "They were all around us. We could hear Japanese voices from 3 different directions. Grenades coming in constantly. We held until ordered to withdraw." Colonel Edson established a new defensive line 200 yards north of the original positions. This contraction shortened the front and concentrated firepower. Marine engineers emplaced additional barbed wire and cleared fields of fire. At 03:00 hours, Japanese attacks decreased in intensity. Both sides reorganized. Marine casualty reports from that night: 14 killed, 37 wounded. Japanese casualties, estimated 200 to 300 based on bodies counted at dawn. Sunrise revealed the changed tactical situation. Japanese forces controlled the southern approaches. Marines held the central ridge. Henderson Field remained within artillery range of enemy positions. The battle was not over. First light on September 13th revealed Japanese dead scattered across the southern slopes of the ridge. Marine patrols counted bodies and recovered equipment. Intelligence analysis of captured documents indicated the attacking force came from Colonel Akinisuke Aka's 124th Infantry Regiment. Colonel Edson conducted commander's reconnaissance at 0600 hours. His assessment to division headquarters: enemy controls southern approaches in strength. Expect renewed assault tonight. Request artillery priority of fires and reinforcement. Major General Vandegrift approved both requests. The 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel David McDougall, received orders to reinforce Edson's position. They arrived by 1400 hours. Total Marine strength on the ridge: approximately 1,000 men. Throughout the day, Marine work parties improved defensive positions. Engineers placed additional barbed wire and anti-personnel mines. Machine gun crews repositioned weapons for interlocking fires. Artillery forward observers adjusted registered concentrations based on overnight contact points. The 11th Marines Artillery Regiment coordinated defensive fires with infantry positions. Lieutenant Colonel Pedro Del Valle, commanding the artillery, personally supervised fire planning. His after-action report details 21 separate defensive concentrations registered around the perimeter. Japanese forces remained visible throughout the day. Marine observers reported enemy troops moving openly in the jungle 600 to 800 yards south. Artillery fire missions engaged these targets. Japanese casualties unknown. At 1600 hours, Japanese artillery resumed firing. Targeting: Marine command posts and known artillery positions. Duration: 2 hours. Effect: limited damage, continued psychological pressure. Captured Japanese planning documents examined after the battle revealed General Kawaguchi's intent. His operational order, dated September 11, 1942, stated, "All units will attack the enemy from the rear and completely destroy them." This directive reflected standard Imperial Japanese Army doctrine for offensive operations. Japanese tactical publications emphasized night attacks, infiltration, and close combat to neutralize American firepower advantages. The Japanese considered bayonet charges and aggressive spirit essential for victory. Training emphasized offensive action regardless of casualties. Defensive operations received minimal attention in pre-war doctrine. This tactical approach worked effectively against Chinese forces during the Second Sino-Japanese War. Japanese commanders assumed similar tactics would succeed against American troops. The assumption did not account for American artillery, defensive coordination, or Marine marksmanship. At 1800 hours, Colonel Edson assembled his company commanders. Official records document his guidance: hold at all costs. If forced to give ground, maintain unit cohesion and counterattack at first opportunity. Maximum use of supporting arms. Marine positions now formed a tighter perimeter. The frontage reduced from 2,400 yards to approximately 600 yards. This concentration multiplied defensive firepower per yard of front. Artillery liaison officers positioned themselves with forward companies. Communications checks confirmed radio contact with fire direction centers. Pre-arranged signals established procedures for close defensive fires. Ammunition resupply completed by 2,000 hours. Each rifleman carried 100 rounds. Machine gun crews maintained 2,000 rounds per gun. Mortar sections stockpiled 60 rounds per tube. Artillery units prepared 200 rounds per howitzer for immediate fire missions. At 2,100 hours, illumination rounds burst over the jungle south of Marine positions. Japanese artillery opened fire simultaneously. The second night's battle had begun. Japanese infantry advanced under artillery cover at 2,130 hours. The volume and coordination exceeded the previous night's attack. The 1st Raider Battalion War Diary records: enemy assault in regimental strength. multiple columns advancing simultaneously. Heavy volume of small arms and automatic weapons fire. Marine defensive fires opened at 200 yards. Rifle companies delivered volley fire into approaching formations. Machine guns engaged on final protective lines. 60 mm mortar fired illumination and high explosive rounds. Japanese troops closed rapidly despite casualties. At 150 yards, Marine artillery delivered the first defensive concentration. Explosions tore through advancing infantry. Survivors continued forward. Private First Class Frank Guidoni, Company B, 1st Raider Battalion, testified in 1943. The artillery was landing 75 yards in front of our position. Bodies flying through the air. More kept coming. We fired until barrels glowed red. By 2,230 hours, Japanese forces reached Marine barbed wire obstacles. Close-range fighting erupted along the entire front. Grenades exploded continuously. Bayonet combat occurred in multiple locations. Colonel Edson moved among 4 positions, directing fires and encouraging Marines. His presence steadied the defense during critical moments. Multiple witnesses reported his calm demeanor under fire. At 2,300 hours, Japanese troops penetrated the Marine left flank. Company A, 1st Parachute Battalion, fell back 50 yards under overwhelming pressure. This created a gap in the defensive line. Japanese infantry exploited the penetration, advancing toward the rear of Marine positions. The situation became critical. Henderson Field lay 1,000 yards north. Enemy breakthrough threatened the entire perimeter. Colonel Edson committed his reserve, 1 platoon from Company B, 1st Raider Battalion. Their counterattack, supported by close artillery fire, sealed the penetration. The War Diary notes, reserve element restored defensive line through aggressive action and effective fire support. Fighting continued throughout the night. Japanese attacks came in waves. Marines repulsed each assault through coordinated defensive fires and determined resistance. Sergeant Mitchell Page, Company H, 7th Marines, attached to Edson's command, manned a machine gun position on the ridge. His Medal of Honor citation describes his actions. When his gun crew became casualties, Sergeant Page continued firing alone, repelling waves of enemy infantry. When his position became untenable, he relocated his weapon under fire and maintained continuous fire. This verified account illustrates the individual actions that sustained the collective defense. The 11th Marines fired 1,992 rounds of 105 mm ammunition during the night of September 13th-14th. This data comes from official ammunition expenditure reports filed September 15th, 1942. Lieutenant Colonel Del Valle's Fire Direction Center coordinated missions throughout the battle. Forward observers called fires within 100 yards of friendly positions. Some concentrations landed as close as 50 yards from Marine lines. Captain Harry Torgerson, artillery forward observer with the 1st Raider Battalion, described fire missions in his official report. Requested fires danger close multiple times. No hesitation from Fire Direction Center. Rounds arrived within 2 minutes of request. Accuracy excellent. Observed enemy casualties in every impact area. Japanese forces suffered catastrophic casualties from this artillery support. Dawn reconnaissance documented hundreds of bodies in impact areas south of Marine positions. The effectiveness of American artillery surprised Japanese commanders. Captured documents revealed General Kawaguchi's post-battle assessment. Enemy artillery fire was concentrated and accurate beyond our expectations. Our casualties were severe. This admission contradicts pre-war Japanese assumptions about American military capability. At 0600 hours, Japanese attack ceased. Marine positions held. Casualties from the second night: 31 killed, 54 wounded. Total Marine strength on the ridge: approximately 900 men. Japanese casualties, estimated 600 to 800 killed based on body counts and captured unit reports. Colonel Edson ordered aggressive patrolling at first light. Marine squads advanced south, clearing former positions and recovering equipment. Japanese forces withdrew deeper into the jungle. The tactical situation stabilized throughout September 14th. Japanese artillery fire decreased significantly. Marine observation posts reported enemy troops moving south, away from the ridge. General Vandegrift visited Edson's command post at 1,000 hours. His verbal order, "Hold this position. You've stopped them." They're finished as an offensive force. This assessment proved accurate. Japanese forces launched a final assault on the night of September 14th to 15th. The attack lacked the strength and coordination of previous nights. The 1st Raider Battalion War Diary describes it as weak probing attacks, easily repulsed. Artillery defensive fires broke up formations before they reached Marine positions. Small arms engagements occurred, but Japanese forces withdrew quickly when met with resistance. By 0400 hours on September 15th, all enemy contact ceased. The Battle of Edson's Ridge was over. Official casualty reports document Marine losses: 104 killed, 278 wounded over 3 days of fighting. Japanese casualties proved difficult to establish precisely. Body counts on and around the ridge exceeded 600. Captured documents and post-war interrogations suggest total. Japanese losses reached 1,200 to 1,500 killed and wounded. General Kawaguchi's command fell apart after the battle. His forces retreated west along the coast. The 35th Infantry Brigade ceased to exist as a cohesive unit. On September 18, 1942, the Secretary of the Navy approved Colonel Edson's recommendation for his unit's official designation, Edson's Ridge. The name appeared in official maps and reports thereafter. Marines called it Bloody Ridge. Both names endured. The Marine Corps conducted comprehensive analysis of the Guadalcanal campaign throughout 1943. The Battle of Edson's Ridge received particular attention due to its defensive nature and successful outcome. Official lessons learned documents identified key factors in the Marine victory. First, artillery effectiveness. The 11th Marines demonstrated the decisive impact of massed, responsive fire support. Their willingness to fire danger close proved critical. Post-battle analysis calculated that artillery accounted for 60 to 70% of confirmed Japanese casualties. Second, defensive coordination. Despite initial setbacks, Marine units maintained cohesion and mutual support. Company commanders adapted to battlefield conditions, repositioning forces and requesting supporting fires as situations developed. Third, leadership presence. Colonel Edson's personal leadership during critical moments steadied the defense. His visibility among forward positions and calm direction provided Marines with confidence under extreme pressure. The Marine Corps' schools at Quantico incorporated these lessons into revised defensive tactics publications by 1944. Post-war analysis of Japanese operations revealed fundamental doctrinal failures. General Kawaguchi's plan assumed American forces would break under determined night assault. This assumption derived from Japanese experiences in China and early Pacific operations where enemy forces retreated or surrendered when aggressively attacked. Marines did not retreat. They maintained defensive positions despite casualties and pressure. This resilience surprised Japanese commanders. Captured Japanese documents include Major Yukichi Kakokusho's diary. His entry from September 15, 1942, states, "Our attacks failed. American artillery stopped every advance. Their infantry did not panic under pressure. Our casualties are severe. Morale poor." This diary entry, archived in the National Archives, reveals Japanese recognition that their tactical doctrine proved ineffective against prepared American defenses. Additionally, Japanese communications failures compounded tactical problems. The three-pronged attack plan required coordination between widely separated units. Dense jungle terrain and lack of radio equipment prevented effective command and control. The diversionary attacks never materialized in strength. General Kawaguchi's main assault fought alone, allowing Marines to concentrate defensive fires. The Battle of Edson's Ridge secured Henderson Field from ground attack. This outcome had strategic consequences for the entire Guadalcanal campaign. With Henderson Field secure, Marine and Navy aircraft operated continuously against Japanese supply convoys. The Tokyo Express destroyer runs bringing reinforcements and supplies suffered increasing losses. Japanese forces on Guadalcanal gradually weakened through attrition. Resupply failures caused food shortages. Disease rates increased. Combat effectiveness declined. By November 1942, Japanese troops on Guadalcanal faced starvation conditions. Official U.S. intelligence summaries from that period document captured enemy soldiers showing signs of severe malnutrition. The decisive moment occurred in September when Marines held Edson's Ridge. Japanese offensive capability never recovered. The Navy Department awarded Colonel Merritt Edson the Medal of Honor for his actions during the battle. His citation reads in part, "For extraordinary heroism and conspicuous intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty as commanding officer of the 1st Marine Raider Battalion with Parachute Battalion attached, during action against enemy Japanese forces in the Solomon Islands on the night of the 13th to the 14th of September 1942. Major Kenneth Bailey, executive officer of the 1st Raider Battalion, also received the Medal of Honor posthumously. He was killed on September 13th while leading a counterattack against Japanese positions. Sergeant Mitchell Page received the Medal of Honor for his machine gun defense during the second night's battle. The Navy Cross was awarded to 23 Marines for actions on Edson's Ridge. Silver Star recipients numbered 47. These recognitions came from official witness statements and commander recommendations verified through the awards process. The 1st Marine Raider Battalion continued operations on Guadalcanal until relieved in October 1942. They departed to Australia for rest and refitting. The battalion deployed again to New Georgia in July 1943, conducting amphibious raids and combat operations. In February 1944, the Marine Corps disbanded the Raider battalions, integrating personnel into standard infantry regiments. This decision reflected doctrinal evolution. Early war special operations concepts gave way to conventional infantry tactics emphasizing firepower and coordination. The need for elite light infantry units diminished as standard Marine infantry capabilities improved. But the legacy endured. Modern Marine Corps units trace lineage to the Raider battalions. The Marine Special Operations Command, established in 2006, considers itself heir to the Raider tradition. Colonel Merritt Edson continued serving through World War II. He commanded the 5th Marines during the Peleliu campaign in 1944. Promoted to Brigadier General, he served as Chief of Staff, Fleet Marine Force Pacific, until the war's end. Edson retired from the Marine Corps in 1947 with the rank of Major General. He worked briefly as Director of Public Safety in Vermont before becoming Executive Director of the National Rifle Association in 1951. He died on August 14, 1955, at age 58. The Marine Corps honored his memory by naming facilities after him. Edson Range at Marine Corps Base Quantico trains recruits in marksmanship. His Medal of Honor is displayed at the National Museum of the Marine Corps in Triangle, Virginia. The airfield that Edson's Marines defended became the cornerstone of Allied air operations in the Solomon Islands. Between August 1942 and February 1943, aircraft operating from Henderson Field sank or damaged 39 Japanese ships, destroyed over 600 aircraft, and provided direct air support for ground operations throughout Guadalcanal. These statistics come from Commander Aircraft, Solomon Islands, operational summaries filed during the campaign. Control of Henderson Field forced Japanese forces to conduct resupply operations at night under difficult conditions. This logistical stranglehold doomed their garrison to eventual defeat. The battle for Edson's Ridge, therefore, determined not just a tactical engagement but the campaign's strategic outcome. Marine Corps' tactical development after Guadalcanal emphasized integrated defense in depth. Lessons from Edson's Ridge influenced these changes. Key doctrinal modifications included increased artillery allocation to infantry regiments, standardized procedures for danger close fire missions, enhanced forward observer training, improved defensive obstacle planning, night fighting techniques and training. These changes appeared in revised field manuals published in 1944 and 1945. The Marine Corps also emphasized physical conditioning and marksmanship following Raider standards. What began as elite unit practices became standard infantry training requirements. Military historians consider the Battle of Edson's Ridge among the most significant defensive actions of World War II. The Marine Corps' official history, published in 1949, states, "The successful defense of the ridge on September 13th to 14th represented the critical point of the Guadalcanal campaign. Had Japanese forces broken through and reached Henderson Field, the entire American position would have been jeopardized." This assessment reflects post-war analysis based on complete operational records from both sides. Guadalcanal turned the tide in the Pacific War. After February 1943, Japanese forces never regained strategic initiative. The campaign demonstrated that American forces could defeat Japanese troops in sustained ground combat. Edson's Ridge proved that determined defenders, properly supported by artillery and maintaining tactical cohesion, could defeat numerically superior forces employing aggressive night assault tactics. This revelation contradicted Japanese doctrine and strategic assumptions. It forced their high command to reassess offensive capabilities and defensive requirements. The lesson cost Japan thousands of casualties and strategic momentum. Marines learned it cost blood and courage under impossible odds. Both lessons proved true. The battlefield on Guadalcanal remains largely unchanged. Dense jungle covers the slopes where Marines fought in September 1942. The ridge itself, officially designated Edson's Ridge on U.S. military maps, rises above the surrounding terrain exactly as it did 80 years ago. Visitors can walk the defensive positions and observe fields of fire Marines relied upon. Henderson Field, now Honiara International Airport, continues operations as the Solomon Islands' primary airfield. Commercial aircraft land on runways built over the original Marine positions. A memorial stands near the southern end of the airport, erected by the Solomon Islands government in 1992. It honors both American and Japanese forces who died during the campaign. The inscription reads, "They gave their lives far from home so that others might live in peace." The 1st Marine Raider Battalion held reunions annually from 1946 until 2010, when advancing age ended the gatherings. Attendance peaked in the 1950s with over 400 veterans present. These reunions provided opportunities for Marines to share experiences and maintain bonds forged in combat. Official reunion booklets, archived at the Marine Corps' History Division, contain veteran testimonies and historical accounts. The final reunion in 2010 drew 17 veterans, the youngest 86 years old. They gathered at Quantico, where the battalion first formed in 1942. The commanding general of Marine, Corps Combat Development Command hosted the event. By 2025, all World War II raiders have passed away. Their documented accounts remain the primary source for understanding their experience. The Battle of Edson's Ridge generated extensive documentation, official unit war diaries, and after-action reports, individual award recommendations with supporting witness statements, artillery fire mission records and ammunition expenditure data, intelligence summaries and captured enemy documents, post-war oral history interviews with veterans, Japanese operational records, and post-war interrogations. These materials, housed at the National Archives, Marine Corps History Division, and Naval History and Heritage Command, provide researchers with comprehensive primary sources. This documentary relies exclusively on these verified sources. Every fact presented comes from documented evidence accessible to researchers and historians. The Guadalcanal campaign lasted 6 months, from August 1942 to February 1943. American casualties totaled 7,100, including 1,600 killed. Japanese casualties exceeded 31,000, with 19,000 killed in combat or dead from disease and starvation. These statistics come from official casualty reports compiled by both nations after the war. The Battle of Edson's Ridge represented one engagement within this larger campaign. Its significance derived from timing and location. Had Japanese forces captured Henderson Field in mid-September, the strategic outcome might have changed. But they did not capture it. Marines held. The campaign continued. Eventually, Japan withdrew its remaining forces in February 1943, conceding defeat. Guadalcanal proved American forces could fight and win sustained ground campaigns against experienced Japanese infantry. This knowledge shaped subsequent operations throughout the Pacific War. When 840 Marines faced 2,000 Japanese troops on Edson's Ridge in September 1942, the outcome was not predetermined. Japanese forces possessed numerical advantage, battlefield initiative, and tactical doctrine emphasizing aggressive night assault. They expected victory. Marines held defensive positions with limited preparation time, extended frontages, and exhaustion from weeks of prior operations. They faced determined attackers employing tactics specifically designed to neutralize American firepower advantages. The battle lasted 3 nights. Japanese forces launched repeated mass assaults supported by artillery. Marines maintained defensive cohesion, delivered coordinated fires, and refused to break under pressure. Artillery proved decisive. The 11th Marines fired nearly 2,000 rounds in close support, destroying Japanese formations before they reached Marine positions. This firepower, combined with Marine marksmanship and leadership, turned numerical disadvantage into tactical victory. The cost was 104 Marines killed and 278 wounded. The result secured Henderson Field, preserved the American perimeter, and broke Japanese offensive capability on Guadalcanal. Strategic initiative passed permanently to Allied forces. These facts come from documented military records, verified witness testimony, and official casualty reports. They represent what happened when training, firepower, and determination met aggressive assault tactics and numerical superiority. The Marines called it Bloody Ridge. The name reflected reality. Modern military doctrine still teaches principles demonstrated on Edson's Ridge. Defensive positions require integrated fires and mutual support. Artillery must be responsive and accurate. Leaders must remain visible during crisis moments. Units must maintain cohesion under pressure. These principles appear in current Marine Corps doctrinal publications. They trace directly the lessons learned on Guadalcanal in 1942. The Marine Corps Warfighting Laboratory at Quantico conducts staff rides to historical battlefields, including Guadalcanal. Officers and senior enlisted Marines study the terrain, review unit actions, and analyze tactical decisions. The purpose: understanding how small units operate under extreme conditions. Edson's Ridge provides that understanding. Historical memory serves multiple purposes. It honors those who served. It preserves lessons learned through sacrifice. It provides context for understanding how present circumstances developed. The Battle of Edson's Ridge matters because it represents a moment when outcome remained uncertain. Japanese forces could have broken through. Henderson Field could have fallen. The Guadalcanal campaign could have failed. But Marines held their ground. Artillery fired in close support. Leaders made sound tactical decisions under pressure. The defense succeeded. These were not inevitable outcomes. They resulted from training, doctrine, equipment, and individual courage applied at the critical moment. Understanding this distinction matters for military professionals studying defensive operations. It matters for citizens understanding how democratic nations defend themselves. It matters for families honoring ancestors who served. Behind the statistics and tactical analysis were individual Marines. 20-year-old riflemen firing until their barrels overheated. Machine gunners maintaining fire despite casualties. Radio operators relaying fire missions under bombardment. Corpsmen treating wounded while exposed to enemy fire. Officers making life or death decisions with incomplete information. Their names appear in official rosters, award citations, and casualty lists. Their testimonies exist in archived interviews and written statements. Their actions determine the battle's outcome. Private First Class Joseph Aumann, previously quoted, survived the war. He returned to Pennsylvania, worked in a steel mill, raised a family, and died in 1998 at age 76. His official testimony from 1943 provides one of the most detailed accounts of the first night's fighting. Sergeant Mitchell Page, Medal of Honor recipient, remained in the Marine Corps until 1959. He retired as a colonel and spent decades speaking to veteran groups and schools about his Guadalcanal experiences. He died in 2003 at age 85. These men were not characters in a dramatic narrative. They were real individuals whose documented actions during specific historical events can be verified through official records. This distinction matters. September 13th through 15th, 1942. Edson's Ridge, Guadalcanal. 840 Marines defended a coral ridgeline against 2,000 Japanese infantry. The battle lasted 3 nights. Japanese forces launched multiple mass assaults. Marines held their positions through coordinated defensive fires and determined resistance. The outcome: Japanese offensive capability broken. Henderson Field secured. Strategic initiative preserved for Allied forces. Cost: 104 Marines killed, 278 wounded. Estimated 1,200 to 1,500 Japanese casualties. These numbers represent documented historical facts. The individual stories behind those numbers represent human experience under combat conditions. Both matter for understanding what happened. The ridge still stands on Guadalcanal. Henderson Field still operates as an airport. The jungle has reclaimed fighting positions. Time continues, but the records remain. War diaries document unit actions. After-action reports describe tactical situations. Casualty lists name those who fell. Award citations explain individual heroism. Veteran testimonies provide first-hand accounts. Together, these sources tell the story of when 840 Marines faced 2,000 Japanese troops on a ridge in the Solomon Islands and refused to yield ground. That refusal changed the course of a campaign. The campaign changed the trajectory of a war. The war shaped the world we inhabit today. Understanding this connection requires examining the specific moment when outcomes remained uncertain and individuals made decisions under impossible pressure. Edson's Ridge provides that moment. The documented evidence allows us to understand what happened without speculation or dramatization. This is the history. These were the men who made it. This is what they faced and how they responded.